City.
I remember everything that led to this moment. The Josh McDaniels error, the Tebow miracle, the Peyton signing, the Super Bowl we lost on the first snap. But on this day, February 7th, 2016, one of the greatest defensive games in Super Bowl history brought the Lombardi back to Mile High. 10 years ago. For reference, I looked like this. The last decade of Broncos football has mostly been misery. Not all of it, but the vast majority. And almost everything has changed over the past 10 years, to a point where the only real similarity between then and now is we played in an AFC championship game. But because we're hopefully not in hell anymore, let's dive back into the dark ages of Broncos football one more time. Because the psychology of being a fan for the last 10 years or so has been really weird. How do you fold a newspaper up? First off, 2016 to 2023 was the second longest dry spell in Broncos history. The longest was so long ago it's basically ancient history. 17 years of nothing when the franchise was founded and still figuring out how to play football. And then the next year, they just went to the Super Bowl? From that point, 1977 to 2015, the longest playoff drought didn't extend past 5 seasons. So, for the better part of 4 decades, Denver was in the thick of the NFL zeitgeist, either by barely scraping in, actively competing for championships, or just winning them outright, dude. Being a Broncos fan's historically carried a lot of pride, and the team has seldom let them down. That is until 2016.
It's been a while since I ran a 4.40.
The year started great, but the honeymoon was short. Over 20 guys from that Super Bowl team were already gone, including the sheriff.
God bless all of you, and God bless football.
Everyone had a feeling this was going to happen, but Peyton didn't play the full 2015 season, so lots of us naturally figured the guy who went 5-2 in his absence would be next man up. Brock signed with Houston 2 days later. Okay, so there's no plan B. Plan C, Fitzmagic? Kaepernick? Trade for Romo? Nope. Trade for Mark Sanchez, draft Paxton Lynch, and have them compete all offseason only to lose the starting job to Trevor Siemian. Yep. Losing Peyton was always going to be a culture shock, but nobody had any clue just how different things were going to be this year. Unless you're old enough to remember what life was like after Elway retired, in which case you're old. The defense was still mostly intact, but when you win the season opener on no passing touchdowns and a shanked Panthers field goal, that set the tone for the whole year. And started the carousel. Denver got a 4-0 start and was only 7-3 before the bye, but Siemian got hurt in week 4 and Paxton had to sub in for a bit. It didn't go great. We were winning games on the strength of almost any unit except the offense. But we were 8-4 with 4 weeks left. Playoffs weren't that far away. We expected we'd get there. And then we dropped 3 straight, went 1-5 against the West, and let the Chiefs dynasty escape containment. Sorry about that. It felt like a miracle that this was just a winning season. Expectations just kept sliding all year long. We went from cautious optimism to disbelief over how it was possible we missed the playoffs the year after we just won a chip. And that was the last winning season we'd have for a long time.
And here he is, having the time of his life.
Coach Kubiak retired the day after the 2016 season for health concerns, taking with him the second highest win percentage of any coach in franchise history. Big shoes to fill, but we have options. Sean McVay, Sean McDermott, Kyle Shanahan. We definitely want Mike's son in the building. So naturally, we signed Vance Joseph after 1 season as Miami's DC. And if one carousel wasn't bad enough, we'd inadvertently started a second one. And lost more pieces of that Super Bowl team. We're almost unrecognizable 2 years later, save for a couple of stars. At least we signed Brock back, but trust the process, right? I'm hearing positive things about VJ. People are optimistic Trevor can have a better sophomore season. 4-0 in preseason, 3-1 before the bye. Holy fuck. I'm not saying the writing was on the wall from the jump, but it was harder going into the season with any expectations it would be better. Lo and behold, it wasn't. Trevor wasn't impressing and had injury concerns. Brock had tanked his stock in Houston and wasn't doing anything to improve it here. Paxton.
Lynch, Autry chases, and
and look out, it's intercepted!
The offense had a hard time scoring 20, the IR list got longer by the week, and it had literally been 50 years since the last time Denver had lost 8 games straight. Like, fucking love that we broke that streak. The defense under VJ was still putting up incredible numbers, but the other side of the ball was rudderless. And that made games a slog to sit through. It didn't get better.
I'd like to introduce you to the new starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos, Case Keenum.
To hear that phrase at the start of the offseason instead of after a long training camp battle was a nice reprieve. To hear Case Keenum at the end didn't inspire confidence. One good year and a miracle throw didn't have most people excited, especially having the number 5 pick in that year's draft when we could have used it for either Josh or Lamar. I was excited for Phillip Lindsay and Bradley Chubb, but the whole season going in felt like it was put together with spit and Kleenex. And 3-6 with a 4-game losing streak before the bye, lost both games to Kermit in his first year as a starter. Case wasn't really giving us reasons to think he was the guy. The offensive line was imploding. Actually, the whole team was. And we traded DT to Houston the week before they beat us. You're scraping the bottom of the barrel looking for reasons to keep me invested this year. 3-game win streak helps. Maybe we can fit a playoff push in at the end of the year? Nope.
Mayfield rips it, end zone, touchdown!
At this point, people aren't really convinced that Vance is able to manage a game. The IR list is longer than last year, and every player we liked is on it, but that's no excuse. The stats say our defense plummeted compared to last year, and that was Vance's last hope. And I don't think we're keeping Case. The vibe as a fan is kind of despondent at this point because we had had several years of pain, then the age of Manning prosperity, and now it's hard to accept that we're already back in pain. We're just in denial about it at this point. And it just gets weirder.
I'm Brandon. The Denver Broncos are expected to fire new head coach Vic Fangio in 2 years perna.
Spoiler, he'd make it longer, but the Fangio hiring was immediately more interesting from a fan standpoint because an assistant coach of the year award and 19 years of DC experience compared to just one, way more bankable. Not immediately inspiring, but I was at least willing to give this one a chance. But then we trade for Joe Flacco, ship Case off to Washington, hemorrhage talent off the roster, and to top it off, we lose the great Pat Bowlen after 35 years of ownership. Do you have any idea how hard it is for a city to give that much of a shit about a billionaire? We loved him around here. And now we have to figure out what the future of this franchise even looks like. My kingdom for a normal offseason. Or a normal season. We dropped our first 4 games for the first time since the year I was born, went 3-6 before the bye, traded the legend Emmanuel Sanders by week 7, and not only was Flacco not playing good, he's now on IR, and Brandon Allen is starting? This is when I personally started clocking that I have more fun watching football when the offense is good. I know, hot take of the year. We had a defense that was putting it together. Vaughn, Derek, Harris, Simmons, Josie, Mike Purcell, Alexander Johnson, Bradley Chubb, Bryce Callahan, Kareem Jackson. Wait, not those last few, because the IR list is now longer than the cast of Game of Thrones. So the offense has to step up. And then we start Drew Lock. He only played the last 5 games, but 4 of those were wins, and he was a vibes merchant. He didn't have a lot to work with, but he was a breath of fresh air when we were gasping for anything. And I wanted to believe. I wanted to buy into this picture being the future. You know how Saints fans are hoping Tyler Shuck is the guy? That was us with Drew in 2019. Except he also knew the lyrics to Put On by Jeezy. There was a little more hope going into this offseason. The kind I hope really doesn't get spoiled by a severe acute respiratory syndrome.
Broncos today announced they will not allow fans in the stadiums once again after Sunday.
I'll be real with you. I blacked out this entire year. Nothing good happened the entire time. We weren't watchable. The Super Bowl was Kansas City against Tom Brady. Nothing was good. All I'll say is Kendall Hinton should be in the Ring of Fame. And I hate Pat Shurmur for stifling Drew Lock.
We did a drill today where we were actually trying to throw incompletions.
Immediate shakeup, Elway steps down as GM after years of people wanting change in the front office. We got it with George Paton from the Vikings, who immediately slam dunks the draft. That brings a little optimism back. We also didn't sign either Aaron or Deshaun. Bullets dodged in hindsight, but I wasn't really interested in either of them. So we get Teddy B, which, sure, throw him on the pile. But realistically, this still felt like a build year with a bunch of stopgaps. There's reasons to invest in the future, but not in this season. Lots of guys don't feel like long-term pieces. Vic's scheme is starting to get less and less unique. Rest of the division is packing heat comparatively. We only have 2 guys from the Super Bowl 50 team left. Wait, we traded Vaughn mid-season? It's the right call, but God, it stings. That's our franchise sack leader out the door. And the season goes about how everyone thought it would going in. Injury issues, still losing to some of the bad teams. And even if Vic keeps spawning defenses out of nothing that keep us in the picture, 3 straight losing seasons just isn't good enough. The Trinity feels broken again. We don't know our GM that well. We don't know who's coaching. We don't even know who's under center. And now we don't even have an idea of who's buying the team. Buckle the fuck up.
Broncos country!
See, no.
That's right!
That's not the video.
Before that, Nate Hackett gets the head coach gig after several different OC jobs. Man's got charisma, a decent history, he's the first offensive-minded head coach we've had for a minute, and you really want to root for the guy, but he's also a rookie, and I've been burned by rookies before, so I'm just in prove it or get out mode on this one. The franchise gets bought by Walmart, which I actually don't hate. Highest NFL team sale price at the time, 5th highest worldwide sports price today. Felt pretty valued, and they said all the right things. I just didn't want this to be another negative factor in how the team did. And then
Russell Wilson has been traded to the Denver Broncos
in exchange for a package of picks and players that'll be one of the largest in NFL history.
This is one of the most lopsided trades I've ever seen in my life.
Russell Wilson!
Wow, we really got our guy.
Multiple first-round draft picks, plus additional picks and players.
Okay.
5-year, $245 million contract extension.
Wait, what?
Russell Wilson has his own office.
And his own quarterbacks, coach.
His own jersey, though, showing up to training camp.
Broncos orange, let's ride.
Let's ride.
Let's ride.
Spicy.
Big bite.
I am trying to find something nice to say, and I don't have anything.
Look, I don't mind being back in the national spotlight again after years on the shelf, but it feels like we're going back there for all the wrong reasons. We didn't know the half of it. Somehow forgetting we had timeouts, delay of game penalties, fans counting down the play clock in case Hackett forgot, Russ sprinting out of clean pockets, Melvin Gordon fumbling, more delay of game penalties, hiring an offensive assistant to get rid of delay of game penalties. That TNF game. High knees on the plane? Our own guys hate our guy. Melvin Gordon fumbling. Still can't beat Kermit. Getting roasted on Christmas Day by fucking Patrick Starr.
That's not what he wanted to cook.
Firing Hackett, the delay of game assistant he hired taking his place, gift wrapping the number 5 pick to the Seahawks, and most importantly, not living up to the meme.
Broncos country. That's right.
Absolute cinema! If you're a Raiders fan. We've had 5-win seasons in this decade already. That's nothing new. But that was suffering in relative obscurity. Suffering in the mainstream eye to this degree is entirely different, and all you can do is sit back and endure. First season with the new owners, and it's a complete comedy skit come to life. One of the fastest head coach firings in history, and I'm just mortified. This was rock bottom. And that was a good thing?
It is my privilege and honor to welcome the new head coach of the Denver Broncos, Sean Payton.
This felt like a new era. No more first-timers. A guy with real experience at the position for over a decade at the highest level. Screw what it took to get him, that man's absolutely worth a first-rounder. With him comes a ton of help in areas we really needed it, a general sense we were gonna take things seriously, and hey, oh look, VJ's back. I don't know what ex-head coach would go back to that team in a lesser role if he didn't believe in it. Maybe this is what new regimes look like. But it doesn't feel like it.
Lowers his shoulder, fumble the football! To the end zone, batted down! 69 points! Wilson lost the football! Intercepted at the 42-yard line.
Look, that stretch sucked, but because of who's on the sideline, I was still giving the situation a ton of slack. I was out on Russ early though. It wasn't even what he said or the way he carried himself, it was the scheme differences and refusal to throw over the middle and taking too many sacks and not meshing with Sean. But the trade was so massive, sunken cost fallacy was so high, call it copium or whatever, I didn't think there was a chance we did anything about it. And then weirdly, we turned things around. 3-5 before the bye turns into a 5-game win streak, turns into a winning record at week 14. Hang on, that's happened before. That doesn't mean anything. It didn't here either. We still missed the playoffs, but we almost had a winning record. And it did shift a narrative. There was a big difference between the first few weeks and the rest of the season, and it wasn't just the local pundits taking notice. It wasn't substantial enough to get our stats out of the gutter, but it was like, hang on, can we just run the second half of that season back? And rather unexpectedly, Russ didn't last the full year. So I left this season with the sense that if this regime change was real, if we were gonna take this seriously, the next offseason mattered a ton.
6 for 12, 6 quarterbacks in the first dozen picks.
Transformation, as it turns out, means taking your medicine. And tanking the largest single-player dead cap hit in league history. But it signaled we wanted a relatively clean slate without the remnants of stuff that wasn't working. And we were just gonna move on whatever we had. So going in, this did just feel like a rebuild year. But they had a vision.
The Denver Broncos select Bo Nix.
You know what I was thinking? Not every first-round quarterback works out, but somehow I just knew we got the sleeper hit. His stats just spoke for themselves. And playing behind a recently revamped O-line, like barring additional receiver help, we were giving Bo as good an environment as a first-rounder could probably ask for when usually they go to desperate franchises that don't have nearly as many pieces in place. And as soon as he won the starting job in camp, I was ready for my optimism to wash away just like the last 2 first-round quarterbacks we took. But it never did. 8-5 with 2 3-game win streaks before the bye. Sure, Bo took till week 4 to throw his first touchdown, the D bailed us out of a few games, and we didn't know what side of the bullshit meter we were on. Multiple win streaks for the first time since 2015, and we were 1 game outside a winning season. Then we got that, and we were 1 game outside playoffs. And even if we dropped 2 heartbreakers and won the gimme game, those 2 proved we could go toe-to-toe with the upper echelon again, and this one got us in playoffs. I don't even care that Buffalo blanked us. 8-year streak snapped, and in a year where I would have been completely fine just maintaining from last season while we worked on transitioning quarterbacks, entire season was overachieving. Even if some games were a hard watch, because we made the postseason for the first time since I could legally buy cigarettes. I would have been happy if the year after this one, all we did was just win 1 more game.
And has a Denver touchdown! Caught for the touchdown! Mims, they got Sutton, that's 6! Touchdown Denver, what a catch!
There's a whole pack of people there! Avoids the sack until he can't!
He got it! Denver is 1
For the end zone! Harvey takes it home!
Floats it down the sideline. Ortland Sutton over the middle and intercepted.
There's a push, and they push him across!
Denver has won 9 in a row. Calling out blockers. Touchdown!
Nix to the end zone. Franklin has it,
And he's going to run it into the end zone.
they are the number 1 seed in the AFC.
First number 1 seed since Peyton Manning. First 11-game win streak since Peyton Manning. First AFC West title since Peyton Manning. Reclaiming that from the Chiefs already felt good, but we also inherited their asinine ability to win 1-score games. That ability carried into the divisional when we dunked on Buffalo and we won our first playoff game since Peyton Manning. Again, I was perfectly happy if this year was just an incremental improvement from last year. This went so far past expectations, I did something I haven't done in 10 years. I let myself believe. We had a home field AFC title game. New England were incredibly overrated. Houston wouldn't survive our D. And Bo had the clutch gene. We were going to the Super.
Not good news. On the second to last play in overtime, Bo fractured a bone in his right ankle. He's scheduled to have surgery Tuesday, which will put him out for the rest of the season.
Backing up. Oh, the ball comes out. Is that a fumble? Is that a live ball? It's picked up.
Everything
Bo's hips. This is a deep throw, and it is picked off, intercepted.
Warriors!
There were two main things I learned from doing a retrospective like this. The first is, rest of the team might have great pieces, but if quarterback and head coach aren't doing well, it's hard to care about anything else. I realized how much of this video that took up. I didn't talk nearly enough about Philip Lindsay, Javonte, Justin Simmons, Court, losing DT, the turnaround of Garrett Bowles, the uniform updates, how good ownership's been the past few years, because QB and coach were out of sync for 8 to 9 years after that Super Bowl. And if that wasn't fixed, then entire seasons were hard to get interested in. I know there are teams out there with considerably longer playoff droughts and dysfunction than we had, and if you're a fan of one of those teams, I'm really sorry about that. But I kind of get it now. If you can't lock down the two most important responsibilities on the team, putting your emotional state in their hands as a fan becomes so much harder to justify. But the second thing I learned, you can pick and choose how much of your team you consume when they're not doing well. It is not mandatory to watch every game, listen to every presser, armchair GM every deal, or otherwise force yourself to make one sports team the center of your emotional state. Unless it's your job, which I respect, but not every season of a TV show is good just because some of them were. And that's all the NFL is to most people. The last 3 years, I have consumed more about Broncos football than I think I ever really have, and it's been immense fun to hitch my heart to this franchise again as they jumpstart into a new era. If I had been that all in when the team was sucking for 8 years, I know it would have been really unhealthy. And if anyone ever accuses you of not being a real fan for not being ultra diehard and watching everything they do, ask yourself what a billion-dollar corporation ever did for you that made it worth watching them when they weren't producing actual entertainment. You've got free will. You can take breaks. And it's completely okay. Because no matter how badly my teams do, they won't ever leave that priority list in my heart. It doesn't stop me from still supporting them passively, won't shutter the happiness I get when they play well, and doesn't ever make me not want to see them get back to the mountaintop. Denver is finally back on track after one of the darkest periods in team history. And even when they were in the shits, I was still pulling for them. I don't know if I'd say the last 10 years were worth it to get to this point, but I am happy that we're finally here. So long as we don't turn into the Titans and vanish without a trace after making an AFC title game, I'd like to think we're back to being dangerous again. For the Broncos, it wasn't an easy road to get here, it took an abnormally long amount of time to get out of hell, and it wasn't an easy decade to sit through as a fan, but you'd better believe I'm already signed up for another one.